Thanks everybody for coming back today. My name is Doug Vilsack. I'm the State Director for the Bureau of Land Management here in Colorado. I was thinking about, as I was driving over here this morning, signs of spring for me. You know, the birds are coming back from the south, the grass is getting green, the buds are on the trees, and we're here at the Energy and Environment Symposium, or Kirby Fest, every year. So always helps me remember that spring is just around the corner, that we're all here in Newcastle at this event. So really appreciate everybody being here today. Especially appreciate our BLM staff sitting right here in the middle. We've been out here for the last few days, really getting our entire oil and gas and field office teams together to sit down and strategize on how we can achieve the goals set out in a number of new executive orders and secretarial orders, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes, and really kind of sit down and try to make some progress on those fronts. So maybe our BLM team can stand here for a minute just to wave. AG Elmadani, Matt and Kemba, and I think Greg Larson is kicking around here somewhere as well, and Carmia floating around. Really, I know a decent amount about the oil and gas world in this space after being a lawyer for a number of years, working for the state and now for BLM. But these folks are experts and are field managers around the state, assistant field managers. So please never hesitate to reach out to our field office or our experts on the ground if you're working through issues and need some support. We are there to provide customer service. So track down our folks today and pick their brains, please. I think as all of you know, we at BLM Colorado manage 8.3 million acres of federal lands in this state and about 26 million acres underground. So a huge responsibility and a huge opportunity to do all the things we do on BLM, from recreation to grazing to energy, mineral development. We do kind of all the things at BLM and try to find a balance between all those things. So our day-to-day job is really sitting down and trying to communicate with lots of folks like you all, our stakeholders, to see about how we can make progress on these fronts. On the oil and gas front, I'll talk a little bit, kind of go through our program a bit, recent history when it comes to planning processes, things we've been working on over the past few years, and then talk about some of the executive orders and next steps. And then I will open it up for questions, so please be thinking about any and all questions you have under the sun. Don't be shy, and I will call on our folks sitting at the table in the middle if I can't answer any of these questions, as AG smiles nervously back there. BLM oil and gas statistics. We are responsible for quite a bit of production here in the state. I think as it was mentioned earlier by OSPB, quite a bit of gas on the western slope. We have, just kind of going through these statistics, over 14,000 producing wells. And I think last count, there were somewhere between 48,000 and 52,000 wells here in the state. I think always an ever-evolving number with the work many of you are doing. Roughly, we have almost a third of the wells here in the state of Colorado. So quite a bit of operations going on in the federal lands, and that's why I'm up here today, and hopefully folks are interested in what we have to say. But a huge amount of work that goes on federal lands, huge amount of economic development potential, not only for communities here on the western slope, but also, as was mentioned earlier, severance tax revenue flowing to local communities, just a tremendous amount of engagement from the industry here in the state. We also, beyond oil and gas, have a very robust solid minerals program, mineral materials. So we're pulling sand and gravel out, building roads, doing work around the state on that front. The coal program, obviously quite a bit of coal activity up in northwest Colorado, some of that diminishing now, but also some existing coal operations down in southwest Colorado. So traditionally I've had a very strong coal program, and continue to work with a lot of those communities as there's some transition in those areas. Plenty of mining law activity going on. I think, as our folks know, we still get folks coming in the door, staking claims, looking at mineral records, doing their due diligence on a daily basis at the federal center. So quite a bit of just kind of mineral activity going on. And then as well, mine land reclamation, CERCLA program, hazmat program that is pretty robust here in the state as a result of past mining activity. This says renewable energy, but really it's transmission. We don't have a tremendous amount of renewable energy really any renewable energy development on federal lands here in Colorado. We've had a few solar proposals kind of come and go over the past few years, but a lot of that solar activity on BLM, which is huge activity on BLM, is really in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, some of those areas where the resources are much more accessible and robust. But we do play a lot in the energy transmission role as companies and providers work to stabilize the grid. A couple very large transmission projects up in northwest Colorado, Gateway South, which is online now, Trans West, which is moving forward as well up in Moffett County, and then a number of other kind of rebuilds of transmission lines to address capacity issues, but also to address wildfire risk reduction issues and things like that that I think folks are very aware of recently. Recent planning efforts. I've been talking a lot about these over the past couple years. We have been engaged in probably the most robust resource management planning agenda of any state in BLM in history. We had so many plans going on over the past few years. I'm sure many of our cooperators, as we had trouble just keeping straight what cooperator meeting we might be at a given day or week. But I am happy to report that almost all of them are now done. And I think we're done well in partnership with a lot of you, really sitting down and trying to balance those interests across our many use areas at BLM and trying to land the plane in a way that I think for folks in this room particularly keeps a lot of those high potential oil and gas energy areas open, and then kind of balances some of the needs we have from other stakeholders around recreation, conservation, and wildlife. So just to go through these quickly, we completed a big game conservation RMP that was statewide last year that really aligned federal rules with state rules, which hopefully will be helpful to folks. So you're not being asked to do one thing by my friend Julie Murphy and another thing by me when it comes to big game and habitat conservation. Another on Gunnison sage grouse, which is a threatened species with a home population down in Gunnison County, and then a number of other satellite populations in Utah and in southwest Colorado. So some great work there, again, partnering with local governments, coming up with a plan that tries to balance all the interests in those areas, particularly for Gunnison sage grouse, grazing, and some of the work that we do there to try to maintain a lot of the multiple use work that we do. And then greater sage grouse. This is an ongoing conversation. There are some states that do not have a greater sage grouse record of decision. We do here in Colorado. We signed a record of decision for greater sage grouse in January after long collaboration. This is round 3 for greater sage grouse for us, but after long collaboration with various stakeholders, including, I would say, most important, a lot of our local government stakeholders in western and northwest Colorado. So I'll talk in a minute about why that's important for us and why we're a little different in terms of oil and gas leasing on that front. And then a few more. Eastern Colorado RMP finished at the beginning of last year, really kind of maps out all of our oil and gas activity and other activities in the eastern side of the state. Grand Junction, Colorado River Valley, redo of that plan for both our CRV office here in Grand Junction, a little bit to our west. Finalized that plan last October as well. And then the Western Solar Plan, which really kind of remaps all the solar potential around the western United States. And then the last one that we're still working on right now, we're still before the draft stage, is the Uncompahgre RMP, which is just Delta County, Montrose County, down there in the Uncompahgre field office. So a tremendous amount of planning efforts wrapping up, lots of public outreach and stakeholder work, which leads us to this. For many years, we have not had oil and gas lease sales in Colorado. I think we had, our last one was 2022 of any great significance. I think we did 120 acre parcel about a year ago. But when you have ongoing resource management plans, it's a challenge to understand what you're leasing or kind of what you are putting in those lease agreements. And so now in Colorado, we are in a good place because we know basically what rules we're following as we move forward with lease sales. So we are right now in the process of moving forward with a September 2025 lease sale. Those are some parcels up in Rio Blanco County, and also a few parcels out in, I think it's Adams County, kind of east of Denver. And then December 2025, a significant lease sale up in northwest Colorado, so predominantly Moffett County, Rio Blanco County, a little bit, I think, in Mesa County as well, and are working on really just getting back into that routine now that we've landed a lot of these planning processes of doing quarterly lease sales and kind of moving forward with the regular business of BLM here in the state. We have obviously gotten a lot of new direction in the last couple months, hence the oil and gas summit amongst all of our staff a couple days ago. 2 key executive orders for this space, which I actually put the secretarial order number down here, which gives us a little bit more detail about how to proceed, which is Secretarial Order 3418 about unleashing American energy, and Secretarial Order 3417 about declaring a national energy emergency. So again, a huge focus in these areas and a lot of effort, I think, going on now amongst staff, amongst our partners to sit down and think about how we can prioritize our limited staff around the state in our field offices, our limited capacity to really focus on those high priority areas and really kind of move the permitting processes along for many of you in this room. Somewhat related to those 2, a couple other executive orders and secretarial orders that I wanted to mention. One about achieving prosperity through deregulation. And so over the past couple years, we've talked about a few of the rulemaking processes that have happened at the headquarters level. A number, kind of the oil and gas onshore rule that came out a little over a year ago, the public lands rule, for example. And so there's a lot of work going on at the headquarters level right now and at the department level to look at those rules and consider changes, amendments that might need to be made to achieve the goals of the new administration. So just wanted to flag that one. And then lastly, of course, a big focus not only on oil and gas, but also on critical mineral production. We're not as much of a driver of that here in the state of Colorado as some of our other states like Nevada and Arizona, but certainly a part to play for BLM Colorado there as well, and kind of also thinking about how we can play a part in the action plan at the headquarters level for that work. So what are we doing? I already mentioned our oil and gas summit. So we've had our staff out here huddled in a room for the past few days that really worked well, aligning with this event. Sitting down and thinking about how we prioritize our work. I think as all of you know who have worked with our field offices before, it's always a challenge, our staffing, particularly at the field office level. And so we are sitting down, telling the story of our needs to headquarters, to the department, in a time of a lot of transition, telling the story about how we do need capacity, right? We need to be there when folks call and have questions. We need to be there to not only kind of work on moving permitting forward, but also to be doing the inspections, the kind of day-to-day work that we're required to do on the ground with many of you. And so a lot of time not only prioritizing our staffing levels, but really just trying to tell that story that to achieve a lot of these goals, we're going to need more capacity, we're going to need more oomph in our staff to be able to move forward. And then lastly, we are kind of even beyond the oil and gas team for BLM Colorado, really talking about how we can use some of the other staff capacity that we have around the state to focus on some of the goals when it comes to oil and gas and energy. So how can we take some of our resources staff that work on NEPA, or perhaps we're working on planning processes for some of these resource management plans that we wrap up, and how can we kind of move them over and reallocate them to doing NEPA related to some of the oil and gas activity that we foresee coming online in the state. So maybe I'll close there. We've got a few minutes left for questions. And I'll just, kind of end it with, what we're really trying to do is what we've always tried to do, which is provide customer service to folks, to be responsive, answer questions, try to move permitting processes along in the face of always a lack of capacity, but also to sit here and try to work with all of you and kind of other stakeholders around the state to find balance. And I think that's what we've been trying to do for the past few years with these plans, and we'll continue to do that. I think we live in a unique state here in Colorado. We spend a lot of time communicating not only with all of you, but also with our other partners and county governments and with the state government, with ECMC, to really sit down and try to find, how can we find that balance and try to sync up some of these different regulatory processes that we have going on at different levels around the state. So maybe I'll leave it at that as the overview, and happy to answer any questions folks have, big or small. Yeah. You can yell it and I can repeat it. How's that?
First of all, appreciate that you have a very tough job today. I know there's a lot of change going on, and appreciate your comment from the federal lease sales. You know, one big concern for operators like my operator in the DJ Basin, we've nominated leases over the past 4 years and have gotten zero communication on when those are coming up on potential sales. Glad you're having those sales, but I did notice they were fairly limited until the later part of this year, and also, as you said, the December one was west. Who can we interact with and communicate with to help push some of these things forward so we can make sure that we're adhering to these executive orders and pushing forward U.S. mineral production?
Sure. Go talk to this table. See Kemba Anderson over here. I would also say it's definitely the Royal Gorge Field Office for DJ work. I'll be perfectly candid. We have a 65% vacancy rate in that office. So that is why you maybe have not heard too much from them. I will also say, we're just turning this leasing process back on, right? I mean, we really, the Eastern Colorado RMP, for example, that covers the DJ Basin, got finished about a year ago. So we are kind of turning this process of getting back into the quarterly lease sale periodic kind of work back on, and Kemba's team is working on that. Anything more to add there, Kemba?
Didn't miss out. September, we do have a couple parcels.
That's true.
In the Basin, actually, in Weld County, and in Arapahoe. So we have some people there, but we can talk offline. But if it is Forest Service, it's not us, it is our sister agency, which they also have been tasked with these executive orders. So we are trying to get more online, but we can kind of chat offline and see where they're at.
Yeah. No, and just kind of a segue there too. I mean, we do have quite a bit of a backlog in terms of, Forest Service approvals, reviews, and so along with that oil and gas summit, we've had conversations around how do we kind of streamline some of those conversations. We are actually just on the phone with Forest Service, sitting out in my car here a few minutes ago. So,
right over here in the left corner, Commissioner Jankowski.
Hi, Doug.
Tom.
Commissioner Jankowski, good to see you. In Garfield County, we have probably 12,000 wells, and I think about 1,200 of those are on federal land. And the reason so much is on private land because it was easier to get permitting on private land. That's not the case anymore. With these new executive orders, I know there's an MOU between the BLM and the state of Colorado. Has there been discussion about revisiting that MOU and maybe federal agencies taking over more on the drilling side?
Sure, happy to talk about the MOU. Is Julie here? Julie and I recently re-signed that MOU, I think back in August, perhaps, with her little baby in tow. That MOU has gotten a lot of play, I think, and folks haven't seen this. This is, I think, up on perhaps our website and also on the ECMC website. And essentially what that MOU says is we are going to work in coordination with ECMC to try to link up our processes and make sure that, again, like I said before, you're not hearing one thing from ECMC and then hearing another thing from the federal government, from the BLM. And so there's not a tremendous amount of policy in that MOU. It really is about, all right, we understand that there's a state regulatory structure and there's a federal regulatory structure, and how can we try to marry those up and bring those together? And that MOU was recently updated. I think the last version of it was, gosh, I think it first started in maybe the 90s and had been going for 15 years or so. So we updated it with a lot of the new information and contacts and things like that. But that's really what it is. I mean, it's an MOU to ensure coordination. And, I think the reality is that we'll continue to adapt based on what regulatory structure we have at the federal government or what rules, kind of what is happening at the state level. Again, like I said before, I think we'll see some changes when it comes to regulation, perhaps the oil and gas rule, public lands rule. And, as that changes, I think this MOU is a way for us to make sure we're communicating with ECMC, getting in a room on a regular basis and making sure they're informed of that. So we both kind of understand what structures that we're working under.
All right, and with that, if you all don't mind, we need to take the additional questions. Director Vilsack will be around a little more today. If you would engage him directly, we're going to move on to our next panel. And a big round of applause for Director Vilsack.
Thanks all.